You've probably heard the phrase, God is love, a million times, right? It's beautiful, it's comforting, but what if it's not just a nice thought? What if it's a literal description of the physics of our universe? Today, we're going to look at a pretty radical idea, that love isn't just something we feel, but the actual, fundamental operating system of reality itself.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That beautiful phrase, it almost always comes with some serious fine print. It's like there's this invisible footnote that says, hey, terms and conditions apply. And those conditions can be kind of terrifying, suggesting that this big cosmic love actually has its limits.
So, let's ask a pretty provocative question. What if we just got rid of that fine print? What if there is no unless? What if that statement is absolute, with zero exceptions? What would a universe that's actually built on unconditional love really truly look like? All right, so to even begin to wrap our heads around that, we have to start by completely reframing what we even mean by love. We need to move it out of the box of just human emotion and start thinking about it as a fundamental force of creation. Like gravity.
Now, this definition is everything. In this way of thinking, love isn't just a feeling, it's an action. It's the primary impulse of the source of all things. You can call it God, essence, whatever works for you, to just overflow, to create, to share its own being. It is the fundamental cosmic act of giving.
And what's so cool about this is that this pattern is, it's fractal. It repeats itself on every single scale, from the massive to the tiny. The very same impulse that overflows to create a galaxy is the same energy at work when we create a piece of art, or raise a child, or even just perform a simple act of kindness. It's all the same givingness, just showing up in different forms.
And this is a huge point. It means we're not just outside observers looking in on this whole process. We're not separate from some loving God. No, in this model, we are literal expressions of that loving, giving field. We're made of this stuff. We're living and breathing right inside of it.
Okay, so if the universe is this giant field of love, how in the world do we explain things like heaven and hell? This is where things get really wild. The idea here is that a reality, especially what happens after we die, isn't a place you get sent to. It's more like a frequency you tune into. So let's break that down. The old idea, right? It's all about these fixed, mandatory destinations. You do this, you go here. You do that, you go there. End of story. But this new idea, it's totally different. It says they're more like experiential channels, like radio stations that are created and held in place by the shared focus and belief of all the souls who are tuned in. You're not sent there, you tune into the reality that matches your vibe, your state of being.
So a world, whether it's a hell of pure torment or a heaven of perfect peace, is basically a collective agreement. It's a field of experience that's shaped by our attention and belief. If enough souls pour their emotional energy into it, it becomes a stable, real place to be. But here's the game changer. If you can change your belief, you can change the channel.
Okay, I know this is all sounding pretty abstract, pretty out there, so let's bring it down to earth with a really powerful story. This comes from decades of research in spiritual psychology, and it's the case of a soul they called Patrick.
Imagine this. A research team encounters Patrick, and he is utterly convinced he is still in the freezing ocean, just moments after his ship exploded during a war. He was completely stuck, just reliving the trauma of his death over and over and over again, totally unaware that he'd even died.
He'd basically created his own personal reality, a little pocket universe powered entirely by his own terror and his confusion. The facilitators working with him called it a time capsule of fear. His focus on that trauma was so absolute, it became his entire world. Now, instead of arguing with him or trying to convince him he was dead, a facilitator did something absolutely brilliant. He accepted Patrick's reality, but he introduced a new focal point within it. He asked about Patrick's parents, who he knew had passed away years before. He invited him to look for love inside his reality of fear.
And just like that, everything changed. The second Patrick shifted his attention from the freezing water to the love he felt for his parents, his world started to shift. He began to perceive something new. He saw them reaching for him. He felt their love. And with that tiny shift, he could finally let go of the wreckage he'd been clinging to for so long.
And that is the key to this whole thing.
See, nothing about God's judgment or some cosmic rulebook changed. All that changed was where Patrick put his focus. He shifted his consciousness from a frequency of fear to a frequency of love and trust, and his entire world transformed in an instant. All right, so we've talked about love as a law of physics, reality being about focus. We've heard Patrick's incredible story, but what does this all mean for us, you and me, right here, right now? What are the implications for how we actually live our lives? Well, first, it completely flips our idea of sin on its head. It's not about breaking some divine rules and waiting for punishment. In this model, sin is simply forgetting who we really are. It's the act of locking ourselves into our own little time capsules of anger or resentment or fear, which, you'll notice, hurts us first and foremost.
And if that's what sin is, then salvation changes too. It's not some one-and-done deal that gets you a ticket to heaven. It's the ongoing process of changing our minds, which is literally what the word repentance means. It's the journey of letting go of fear and remembering our connection to love. And, crucially, often with the help of others.
So, what does this way of thinking really ask of us? It kind of boils down to three big things. Number one, take your inner life seriously. Your thoughts, your focus, they create ripples. Number two, hold your beliefs lightly. Doctrines and dogmas can be helpful, but they can also become traps that lock you in. And number three, live like a rescuer. Be like that facilitator for Patrick. Help people you see who are stuck in fear to find a focal point of love.
And that really brings us to the final question, the one that turns this whole thing back on you. If we really do live in a universe built on a foundation of self-giving love, and our reality really does conform to our focus, then what reality are you choosing to create? Right now, with your attention, what will you focus on today?